a loyal family dog refusing to leave a baby's crib every single night. At first, the parents thought it was just love, an unbreakable bond between the dog and their newborn. But soon, that bond turned into desperate barks, restless pacing, and sleepless nights. The dog seemed to sense something the parents couldn't. What could possibly make a dog so anxious and protective? It wasn't long before the family uncovered the chilling truth, a truth that made them call 911 in the middle of the night. This is the story of how a dog's love turned into a life-saving instinct. Hi, welcome to Creature Clips. Today, we're sharing a truly heart-stopping story about the incredible bond between a family, their loyal dog, and a life-changing discovery that no one could have predicted. It's a story that starts with love and protection, but ends in a way that will leave you speechless. Imagine being a new parent, bringing your precious newborn home, and noticing your dog acting unusually protective. At first, it's comforting. Your furry friend watching over your baby like a guardian angel. But what happens when that protective behavior turns into restless pacing, desperate barking, and an unshakable refusal to leave the baby's side? That's exactly what happened to one family. They adored their dog, Max, and trusted his instincts. But they never expected those instincts to uncover something terrifying. What started as an act of love led to a shocking revelation that had them calling 911 in the dead of night. This story is not just about the bravery of an animal, but also a reminder of how attuned our pets can be to things we might overlook. It's a story of trust, courage, and how Max's actions changed this family's life forever. If you love stories that highlight the unbreakable bond between animals and humans, or are curious about how far a dog's love can go, this is one you won't want to miss. So, let's dive in and uncover the heart of this incredible tale. It all began on a crisp autumn evening when Sarah and Michael brought their newborn baby, Lily, home from the hospital. The excitement was palpable in their small suburban home as they walked through the door, holding Lily carefully in her blanket. They had prepared for this moment for months, reading parenting books, assembling the perfect nursery, and even involving Max, their loyal golden retriever, in their plans. Max had been a part of their family for 4 years, ever since Sarah rescued him from a shelter. From the moment they met, Max had shown a deep connection with Sarah, and over the years, he became an irreplaceable part of their lives. He was not just a pet, he was family. Sarah and Michael had always joked that Max would be the big brother to their future children. Little did they know just how true those words would become. The first few hours at home with Lily were filled with wonder and chaos. Sarah settled into the nursery to feed Lily, while Michael unpacked their hospital bags. Max, curious but gentle, approached the baby with a wagging tail and soft, inquisitive eyes. He sniffed the air cautiously around her, his ears perking up at every tiny movement or sound she made. Sarah was touched by Max's instant interest in the baby. It seemed like he understood Lily was someone precious, someone who needed his care. Over the next few days, Max's behavior became even more remarkable. He stationed himself by Lily's crib as if on guard duty. Whether it was day or night, Max was there, lying on the floor or sitting upright, his watchful eyes never straying far from the baby. At first, Sarah and Michael found it adorable. They would snap pictures and share them with friends and family, captioning them with phrases like Max, protector of Lily, or Big Brother duties activated. Everyone agreed it was heartwarming to see such loyalty from their furry friend. But as the days turned into weeks, Max's behavior began to shift. It was subtle at first. He would grow restless in the evenings, pacing back and forth near the nursery door. Then came the barking, short, sharp bursts that echoed through the house. Max would sit by Lily's crib, staring intently at the baby monitor, and let out a low growl or a sharp bark, seemingly at nothing. Sarah and Michael tried to reassure him, patting his head and telling him everything was fine. "You're such a good boy, Max," Michael would say, scratching behind his ears. "But there's nothing to worry about. Max, however, seemed unconvinced. His behavior escalated. He would whine at odd hours of the night, nudging Sarah or Michael awake, as if trying to alert them to something they couldn't see or hear. Once, during a late-night feeding, Max suddenly jumped up, barking furiously at the corner of the room. Sarah's heart raced as she looked around, trying to figure out what had startled him. There was nothing there. No sound, no movement, nothing out of the ordinary. She chalked it up to Max being overly protective and tried to soothe him, but he remained on edge. Michael began to notice patterns in Max's behavior. "Have you realized he always acts up around 2 or 3 a.m.? He asked Sarah one morning over breakfast. Sarah, bleary-eyed from yet another sleepless night, nodded. "It's like clockwork," she said. "But why?" "There's nothing there, Mike. I've checked every time." The couple started to worry. Was Max sick? Was he experiencing anxiety? They consulted their veterinarian, who gave Max a clean bill of health. "It's not uncommon for dogs to become protective when a baby enters the home," the vet explained. "He probably just feels like it's his job to keep her safe. Try to reassure him, but don't encourage the barking too much. He'll settle down once he realizes everything is okay." Reassured by the vet's advice, Sarah and Michael tried to go about their lives as normally as possible. But Max's behavior didn't improve. In fact, it worsened. He would bark more frequently, sometimes at the window or the baby monitor, as if reacting to something unseen. He refused to leave the nursery, even when coaxed with treats or his favorite toy. It was as if Max believed something or someone was threatening Lily, and he wasn't willing to take any chances. The tipping point came one evening when Sarah was putting Lily to bed. As she sang a lullaby, she noticed Max sitting stiffly by the crib, his ears alert and his eyes fixed on the door. Suddenly, he let out a loud, menacing bark and lunged toward the door, his teeth bared. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. She had never seen Max behave this way. He wasn't just barking. He was furious, as if he were trying to protect them from an immediate danger. Michael rushed into the room, alarmed by the commotion. "What's going on?" he asked. Sarah, her voice trembling, replied, "I don't know. He just started barking at the door like there's something or someone there." Michael opened the door to the hallway and found nothing. The house was silent, save for Max's low growl. "Maybe he's sensing something outside," Michael suggested, though his tone was uncertain. He checked the locks on all the doors and windows, but everything was secure. That night, Sarah and Michael decided to set up a baby monitor with video capabilities. They wanted to understand what was triggering Max's behavior and, if possible, find a way to calm him down. The monitor had night vision, allowing them to see Lily's crib even in the dark. They hoped it would provide some answers. Max's behavior persisted over the next few nights, but now Sarah and Michael were armed with the monitor. They watched as Max continued his vigilant watch over Lily, sometimes barking at nothing visible on the screen. The couple began to feel uneasy. Was it possible that Max was sensing something they couldn't? They had heard stories about dogs having heightened senses, being able to detect illnesses, predict seizures, or even sense natural disasters. Could Max be picking up on something beyond their understanding? The unanswered questions weighed heavily on Sarah and Michael. They couldn't ignore Max's behavior any longer, but they also didn't know how to address it. All they could do was wait, watch, and hope that Max was simply being an overprotective big brother. But deep down, both of them felt a growing sense of unease. Max wasn't just protecting Lily, he was warning them. Of what, they had no idea. But they would soon find out, and the truth would shake them to their core. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah and Michael's unease grew. Max's behavior, once endearing and protective, was now unsettling. It wasn't just his loyalty anymore. It was his anxiety, his refusal to leave the nursery, and, most concerning of all, the way he seemed to react to things no one else could see or hear. It started subtly, with Max pacing the floor late at night. Around 2 or 3 a.m., Like clockwork, he would rise from his spot by Lily's crib and begin moving restlessly across the room. His ears would perk up, his head tilting as if listening to a sound too faint for human ears. Sometimes he would stop abruptly, stare at a specific spot in the room, and growl, a low, guttural warning that sent chills down Sarah's spine. At first, Sarah and Michael tried to brush it off. "He's just being a dog," Michael would say, though his tone betrayed his own uncertainty. "Maybe he hears a raccoon outside or something." But even he couldn't explain why Max's behavior was so focused, why it only happened in the nursery, or why it was always at the same time. One particularly restless night, Sarah decided to stay up and watch Max. She sat quietly in the nursery's rocking chair, holding a sleepy Lily in her arms. Max lay on the floor beside her, his head resting on his paws. For a while, everything was calm. The only sounds were the soft hum of the baby monitor and Lily's gentle breathing. But then, as the clock struck 2:17 a.m., Max's ears shot up. He stood abruptly, his body tense, and began pacing. "Max," Sarah whispered, her voice shaky. "What is it?" Max didn't respond. His focus was entirely on the far corner of the room. His eyes narrowed, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Sarah followed his gaze but saw nothing, just the shadows of the furniture cast by the dim nightlight. Her heart raced. She wanted to dismiss it as Max's imagination, but his behavior was too deliberate, too intense. The next morning, Sarah told Michael what had happened. "It's always the same time, Mike. And it's always the same corner of the room. What if he's sensing something we can't?" Michael tried to remain rational. "Dogs are intuitive, sure, but it's probably something simple. Maybe a draft, or he's hearing the pipes in the wall. I'll check it out." True to his word, Michael spent the weekend inspecting the house. He checked for drafts, loose floorboards, and even signs of pests in the walls. But everything seemed normal. There was no logical explanation for Max's behavior. Determined to get to the bottom of it, the couple decided to set up a baby monitor with motion detection and night vision. The monitor would record footage whenever it detected movement, allowing them to see exactly what was happening in Lily's room when Max acted up. They hoped it would provide answers, or, at the very least, some peace of mind. The first night of recording was uneventful. Max was restless as usual, pacing and growling, but nothing unusual appeared on the monitor. Still, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Maybe it's just too subtle to pick up," she said. On the second night, they noticed something strange. Around the same time Max began pacing, the baby monitor picked up faint noises. A soft clicking sound, like someone tapping their fingernails against a surface. The sound was faint, but unmistakable, and it sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "What is that?" she asked, staring at the screen. Michael frowned. "I don't know. Could be interference or maybe something outside the house." But the sound didn't stop. Night after night, it returned, always around the same time and always accompanied by Max's restless pacing. By the third night, the baby monitor captured something even more unsettling. As Max growled at the corner of the room, the motion detection feature triggered. The screen lit up, and for a brief moment, a shadowy blur moved across the room. It was quick, so quick that Sarah thought she might have imagined it. But Michael saw it too. "What the hell was that?" he whispered, his voice tight with fear. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her hands trembling. But Max saw it too. "Look at him." Max was standing in the corner, his body rigid, his teeth bared. He barked furiously, the sound echoing through the house. Sarah rushed to comfort him, but he wouldn't calm down. The couple replayed the footage over and over, trying to make sense of what they had seen. The blur was too vague to identify, but it was enough to confirm their fears. Something was in the room. Over the next few nights, Max's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He would bark and growl at the nursery window, sometimes scratching at the glass as if trying to get out. Other times, he would sit by the crib, trembling, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Sarah and Michael were at their wits' end. They couldn't explain what was happening, and they didn't know how to help Max or themselves. "What if it's something unnatural?" Sarah whispered one night, her voice barely audible. Michael didn't respond. He didn't want to admit it, but he had been thinking the same thing. In their desperation, they began researching stories about dogs sensing paranormal activity. They read accounts of dogs barking at invisible presences, refusing to enter certain rooms, or even protecting their owners from unexplained phenomena. Some of the stories were eerily similar to what they were experiencing. But while the idea of a supernatural explanation was terrifying, it didn't bring them any closer to a solution. They considered moving Lily to another room, but Max's behavior wasn't confined to the nursery. Wherever Lily went, Max followed, and his anxiety followed with him. By this point, Sarah and Michael were barely sleeping. They spent their nights watching the baby monitor, hoping for answers, but finding only more questions. The clicking sounds grew louder, the shadowy movements more frequent. One particularly harrowing night, the baby monitor captured something that made Sarah's blood run cold. As Max barked at the crib, a faint, whisper-like sound came through the monitor. It was so soft that they almost missed it. But when they turned up the volume, the sound was unmistakable. A voice, faint and distorted, whispering a single word: "Leave." Sarah clutched Michael's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice shaking. Michael nodded, his face pale. "We need to call someone." They didn't know who to call: the police, an animal behaviorist, a paranormal investigator. It all felt too surreal, like something out of a horror movie. But as the nights wore on, the situation became impossible to ignore. Max's behavior was escalating, the strange phenomena were becoming more frequent, and Sarah and Michael's fear was reaching a breaking point. They decided to take one final step before calling for help. They set up additional cameras around the house, hoping to capture more footage and gain a clearer understanding of what was happening. The footage they collected over the next few days would change their lives forever. It revealed truths they weren't prepared to face, truths that would leave them questioning everything they thought they knew about their home, their family, and the world around them. And through it all, Max remained their steadfast protector, refusing to leave Lily's side, even as the danger grew. Little did they know, the turning point was just the beginning. The atmosphere in the house had grown heavy with fear. Sarah and Michael were now running on pure adrenaline, their sleepless nights filled with anxious whispers and frantic searches for answers. The situation had spiraled far beyond anything they'd expected. What had started as their dog's unusual protectiveness had turned into something sinister, something they could no longer rationalize. Max's behavior remained unwavering. His restless pacing, intense growling, and unwavering focus on the nursery corner now seemed like desperate attempts to communicate a warning. Sarah and Michael couldn't ignore it anymore. Max wasn't just reacting to something, they were certain he was protecting Lily from it. Determined to uncover the truth, Michael upgraded their baby monitor setup to include more advanced cameras with higher resolution, night vision, and motion-activated recording. He installed multiple angles to ensure they didn't miss a thing. Every night, as they put Lily to bed, they prepared themselves for whatever the cameras might reveal. And then it happened. It was a quiet Wednesday night. Sarah had just rocked Lily to sleep and placed her gently in the crib. Max was already in his usual spot by the crib, his body tense, his ears flicking at the slightest sound. Sarah kissed Lily's forehead and whispered goodnight before turning off the light and leaving the room. Around 2:13 a.m., the first motion alert pinged on their phones. Sarah and Michael, sitting in the living room with the monitor screen open, froze. They watched as the camera picked up a faint, almost imperceptible movement near the crib. At first, it was subtle. The curtains swayed slightly, even though the windows were shut and locked. Then came the sound, a soft tapping noise, like fingers drumming on wood. Sarah's heart raced as the tapping grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the baby monitor. Max immediately jumped to his feet. His body was rigid, his fur bristling. He let out a sharp bark, his gaze locked on the same corner of the room he had been fixated on for weeks. This time, however, his behavior was different. Instead of just growling, Max began lunging toward the corner, barking ferociously. Then came the shadow. On the screen, they saw it. A faint, human-like silhouette moving across the room. It wasn't solid, but appeared more like a distortion, as though the air itself was shifting unnaturally. The figure moved toward the crib, and Max went wild. He barked and snarled, throwing himself between the crib and the shadow. Sarah gasped, clutching Michael's arm. "What is that?" Michael's face was pale, his hands trembling as he gripped the phone. I don't know. The shadow lingered for a moment near the crib, then disappeared abruptly. The room fell silent, save for Max's heavy breathing and low growls. But the night wasn't over. A second motion alert came through, this time from a camera positioned outside the nursery. They switched views and saw something that made their blood run cold. A dark figure standing in the hallway, its outline barely visible in the dim light. The figure didn't move. It stood perfectly still, as if watching. Without hesitation, Michael grabbed his phone and dialed 911. "We need help," he told the dispatcher, his voice trembling. "There's someone in our house." The dispatcher remained calm, asking for their address and assuring them that officers were on their way. Michael turned to Sarah. "Take Lily. Lock yourself in the bathroom with Max. Don't come out until I tell you." Sarah didn't argue. She rushed to the nursery, scooped up Lily, and ran to the bathroom with Max close behind. She locked the door and sat on the floor, holding Lily tightly as Max growled softly, his eyes fixed on the door. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for the police to arrive. Michael stayed in the living room, clutching a baseball bat and watching the monitor. The figure in the hallway had disappeared, but the house felt eerily quiet, as though it were holding its breath. Finally, the sound of sirens broke the silence. Flashing red and blue lights illuminated the front yard, and moments later, officers were at the door. Michael let them in, his relief palpable. The officers conducted a thorough sweep of the house. They checked every room, every closet, and every possible hiding spot, but found no signs of an intruder. The doors and windows were still locked, with no evidence of forced entry. When Sarah emerged from the bathroom, trembling and holding Lily, she explained what they had seen on the baby monitor. The officers reviewed the footage and were just as puzzled. The shadowy figure was visible on the recording, but there was no logical explanation for it. "Sometimes cameras can pick up interference," one officer suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. Sarah shook her head. "This isn't interference. This isn't normal." Max, still on edge, stayed close to Lily, his eyes darting around the room. Before leaving, the officers advised the couple to keep their doors locked and stay vigilant. They promised to patrol the neighborhood and keep an eye out for anything suspicious. But Sarah and Michael knew the problem wasn't outside their home. It was inside. That night, they barely slept. The baby monitor continued to pick up faint noises, but they were too afraid to check. Max stayed by the crib, his body tense, his growls low and steady. The next day, Sarah and Michael decided they couldn't stay in the house any longer. They packed a few essentials and left to stay with Sarah's parents. Max seemed relieved to leave. His usual anxiety noticeably diminished once they were out of the house. Over the following weeks, they sought help from multiple sources: animal behaviorists, home inspectors, and even a paranormal investigator. Each professional offered a different explanation, but none could definitively solve the mystery. The paranormal investigator in particular gave them pause. After reviewing the footage and spending time in the house, she concluded that the disturbances were likely caused by a lingering presence, something that had attached itself to the home or the family. "But why the baby?" Sarah asked, her voice breaking. The investigator shook her head. "Sometimes spirits are drawn to innocence. Or perhaps Max is protecting her from something even darker." The idea chilled Sarah to the core. Ultimately, the couple decided to sell the house and start fresh elsewhere. They couldn't bear the thought of returning to a place that had caused so much fear and uncertainty. Through it all, Max remained their hero, the vigilant protector who had sensed danger long before they could. Sarah and Michael knew they owed him more than they could ever express. Without Max, who knows what might have happened to Lily? The experience left an indelible mark on the family, a story they would never forget. Though they still didn't have all the answers, they knew one thing for sure. Max's instincts had saved them from something unimaginable. And for that, they would always be grateful. The piercing wail of sirens filled the air as the police arrived at the scene. Red and blue lights flickered through the quiet suburban neighborhood, breaking the uneasy stillness that had gripped the house for hours. Sarah clutched Lily tightly in her arms as Michael unlocked the door to let the officers in. Max, standing beside Sarah, was still on high alert, his eyes scanning every shadow, every corner, every movement. Two uniformed officers stepped inside, their presence bringing a small but fleeting sense of relief. Michael quickly relayed the events of the night, the shadowy figure, the noises, and, most importantly, Max's relentless warnings. "He's been acting strange for weeks," Michael said, gesturing to Max, who was now sitting protectively by Sarah and Lily. "But tonight, something was different. We saw someone, or something." The officers exchanged glances but didn't dismiss the story outright. They'd seen enough in their line of work to know that even the most bizarre situations could have a very real explanation. "Let's take a look around," one of them said, signaling his partner to follow. While the officers began their search of the house, Sarah and Michael sat together on the couch, the tension between them palpable. Max remained restless, his ears twitching at every sound the officers made as they moved through the house. The minutes dragged on, each one filled with agonizing anticipation. The officers checked every room, every closet, every crawl space, and every window. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until they reached the nursery. There, in the corner of the room where Max had been fixated for weeks, they found something chilling. The nursery window, which Michael had checked and locked earlier that evening, was slightly ajar. The lock had been tampered with, the faint marks of a tool etched into the frame. "Looks like someone tried to get in here," one officer muttered, his voice low. He radioed for backup and continued examining the area. Outside the window, the ground below revealed fresh footprints in the damp soil. The prints were large, too large to belong to Sarah or Michael, and they led away from the house toward the backyard fence. The officers followed the trail, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Near the fence, they found more disturbing evidence: a pair of gloves, a crowbar, and a crumpled piece of paper. The paper was smeared with dirt, but the words were still legible. It was a crudely drawn map of the house, with the nursery marked by an X one officer called out to the other, holding up the paper. "Looks like this wasn't random. They knew exactly where to go." Back inside, Sarah and Michael were stunned when the officers shared their findings. "A break-in? But why? Why the nursery?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling as she held Lily closer. "It's hard to say," the officer replied. "But whoever it was, they were watching your house. And they were targeting your baby." The weight of his words hit Sarah and Michael like a ton of bricks. The thought of someone lurking outside their home, planning to harm their child, was almost too much to bear. Max let out a low growl, his eyes fixed on the nursery door. Even now, with the immediate threat seemingly gone, he remained vigilant. "You said your dog's been acting strange for weeks," the officer continued. "I think he knew something was wrong long before anyone else did. Dogs are incredibly perceptive. They can sense things we can't: smells, sounds, even the intentions of others." Sarah looked down at Max, tears welling up in her eyes. "He's been trying to warn us this whole time," she whispered. The officers spent the next several hours securing the house, collecting evidence, and combing the neighborhood for any signs of the intruder. They found no one, but the items left behind painted a clear picture. This had been a calculated attempt to break into the house, and Max had likely thwarted it. As the night turned into morning, the adrenaline began to wear off, replaced by a deep exhaustion. But despite their fatigue, Sarah and Michael couldn't stop thinking about how close they had come to disaster and how Max had saved them. The next day, news of the incident spread through the neighborhood. Friends and neighbors stopped by to check on the family, offering words of comfort and support. Many of them marveled at Max's bravery, calling him a hero. "He's not just a dog," Sarah said to one neighbor. "He's family, and he saved ours." Over the following weeks, Sarah and Michael took every precaution to ensure their home was secure. They installed a state-of-the-art security system, added motion sensor lights around the property, and replaced all the locks. But even with these measures in place, they couldn't shake the lingering fear. For Max, however, life slowly returned to normal. With the threat gone, his anxiety subsided and he resumed his role as Lily's gentle guardian. He still slept by her crib every night, but now his presence brought comfort instead of concern. As the family settled back into their routine, they reflected on the lessons they had learned. They had underestimated Max's instincts, dismissing his behavior as overprotective or irrational. But Max had known all along. He had sensed the danger, understood the stakes, and acted without hesitation. To show their gratitude, Sarah and Michael went out of their way to spoil Max. They bought him new toys, treated him to his favorite meals, and even threw a small hero party in his honor. Friends and family gathered to celebrate Max, showering him with affection and praise. "You're our hero, Max," Sarah said, kneeling down to scratch behind his ears. "We owe you everything." As the weeks turned into months, the family's fear began to fade, replaced by a profound appreciation for their bond with Max. They knew they would never forget the night he saved them from a potential tragedy, or the love and loyalty that had driven him to protect them. And though Lily would grow up too young to remember the events of that night, Sarah and Michael would make sure she always knew the story of Max, the dog who refused to let her sleep alone, and how his instincts had saved their family from unthinkable harm. Because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they have 4 legs, a wagging tail, and a heart full of love. As the story of Max and his family unfolded, it raised profound questions about the incredible bond between humans and animals. Max's instincts had not only saved baby Lily, but had also taught an invaluable lesson. Sometimes, the quietest voices in our lives, our pets, can speak the loudest when it matters most. But as you listen to this story, ask yourself, what would you do if your dog behaved like Max? Would you recognize their signals? Would you trust their instincts, even when there's no immediate explanation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this incredible connection. Max's actions weren't just the result of good training or chance. His ability to sense danger came from something much deeper, an unbreakable bond of love and loyalty to his family. Dogs have a remarkable ability to tune into their surroundings in ways we often overlook. Whether it's their acute sense of hearing, their unparalleled sense of smell, or their natural protective instincts, dogs like Max remind us of the extraordinary role animals play in our lives. Have you ever experienced something similar with your pet? Perhaps they alerted you to something unusual or seemed to know when you needed comfort the most. Stories like these remind us that animals aren't just companions, they're family. Share your own stories in the comments below. Let's celebrate the amazing ways our pets enrich our lives. What makes this story truly remarkable is the emotional depth. Sarah and Michael trusted Max as part of their family, but when his behavior changed, they doubted him at first. Yet Max never wavered. Despite their uncertainty, he stayed vigilant, protecting baby Lily with every fiber of his being. This brings up an important question. How much do we truly understand about our pet's behavior? Are we quick to dismiss their actions as random, or do we take the time to listen and interpret their signals? If you've ever doubted your pet's instincts but later discovered they were right, let us know in the comments. Let's share our experiences and learn from one another. Max's story isn't just about danger or survival, It's about the deep and meaningful relationship between humans and animals. Dogs like Max are heroes, but they don't seek recognition. Their love and loyalty are unconditional. If you're as amazed by Max's bravery as we are, take a moment to hit the like button. It's a small way to honor dogs like Max, who go above and beyond for their families. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible animal stories that showcase the beauty and strength of this bond. This story is just one of many that highlight the extraordinary instincts and selflessness of animals. By subscribing to this channel, you're joining a community of animal lovers who celebrate these incredible stories. Together, we can learn more about the unique relationships we share with our pets and inspire others to cherish and protect them. Let's make this a space where we can share, connect, and grow. Have a story about your own pet? Drop it in the comments. Whether it's heartwarming, funny, or even mysterious, we'd love to hear about it. As you've followed Max's journey, you've probably felt a mix of emotions: fear, amazement, relief, and gratitude. That's the power of stories like these. They remind us of the depth of love and courage animals bring into our lives. Now, imagine yourself in Sarah and Michael's shoes. How would you have reacted to Max's behavior? Would you have acted sooner? Or would you have doubted him like they did? These are questions worth pondering, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit the like button if you believe animals like Max deserve to be celebrated. And if you want to hear more stories that showcase the incredible instincts of animals, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Every like and subscription helps us bring more stories like this to you. Max's actions also highlight the importance of understanding our pet's behavior. Dogs in particular have heightened senses that allow them to detect things we can't. From changes in the environment to shifts in human emotions, dogs are constantly picking up on subtle cues. If you've ever wondered how dogs like Max can sense danger, let us know in the comments. We're planning a future video that dives deeper into the science of animal instincts, and your questions could be featured. This story isn't just a testament to Max's heroism, it's a reminder to all pet owners to pay attention to their animals. Whether it's unusual behavior, persistent barking, or even subtle changes in their routine, our pets are always communicating with us. Help us spread awareness about the importance of listening to our pets. Share this video with your friends and family, especially those who have pets. You never know who might need to hear this story and learn from it. We'd love to hear from you. Here are some questions to spark discussion in the comments. Has your pet ever alerted you to danger or something unusual? Do you think you would have trusted Max's instincts in this situation? What's the most amazing thing your pet has ever done? Your stories might even inspire our next video. Before we wrap up, we want to thank you for watching this story about Max, Sarah, Michael, and baby Lily. Stories like these remind us of the incredible bond we share with animals and the lessons they teach us every day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more inspiring stories to animal lovers everywhere. As we close this chapter of Max's incredible journey, we leave you with one final thought. Heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes they're the ones wagging their tails at the front door, always ready to protect us, love us, and remind us of what truly matters. So, if you're inspired by Max's bravery, share this video, hit the like button, and join us by subscribing to the channel. Together, let's celebrate the amazing animals who make our lives better every single day.